Good morning. I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Minneapolis City Council to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Here.
Gordon. Here. Kano.
Here.
Reich. Here. Bender.
Here.
Glidden.
Here.
Yang.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Quincy.
Here.
Warsami.
Here.
Goodman.
Present.
Fry.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
There are 13 members present.
No, we have all members present. First item on our agenda is adoption of the agenda. I know the Council Vice President has a change.
Yes, Council President Johnson, I'd like to move to amend the agenda so that the IGR committee report is first after referral of petitions.
Councilmember Glidden has moved the IGR report to come after the initial items on the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Then a motion to approve the agenda as amended is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next, we have acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 3rd, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Referral of petitions and communications and reports of the city officers to proper committees and departments is next.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Then we have the IGR committee report, and that committee is chaired by Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden.
Thank you, Madam President. We have one item on the agenda, and this is passage of a resolution establishing a sister city relationship with Bosaso, Somalia. I would like to move approval of this item, and then with your permission, Councilmember Warsami has given me the honor of asking me to read the resolution, and then I'm sure others may have comments.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this resolution is extending an invitation to the city of Bosaso to join in a sister city agreement with the city of Minneapolis, inviting the residents of Bosaso and Minneapolis to participate in the activities outlined in the agreement and approving the plans of Minnesota Friends of Bosaso to work with the city of Minneapolis to develop the sister city agreement. Whereas Minneapolis has the largest Somali American community in the United States of America, contributing to the vibrancy of Minneapolis. And whereas there are hundreds of Somali-owned and operated commercial ventures contributing to the economic health of Minneapolis. And whereas Somali Americans have established educational, cultural, and nonprofit institutions in Minneapolis, and whereas many in Minneapolis and Minnesota have familial, linguistic, and entrepreneurial connections with Bosaso. And whereas Bosaso is a thriving commercial center, and whereas a sister city relationship with Bosaso would formalize the existing informal connections between our cities. And whereas in creating this historic relationship with Bosaso, Minneapolis would be the first city in the United States of America to forge such connections with a city in Somalia. And whereas Mayor Hassan Abdali Hassan and the City Council of Bosaso have provided written support and encouragement for a formal sister city relationship with Minneapolis. And whereas Minnesota Friends of Bosaso is a volunteer organization working to enhance the relationship between the people of Minneapolis and Bosaso and promote cultural understanding. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Minneapolis that the City Council, on behalf of the people of Minneapolis, hereby approves the efforts of Minnesota Friends of Bosaso to develop a sister city agreement between the cities of Minneapolis and Bosaso for the purposes of promoting cultural understanding and stimulating economic development between our two cities and nations. Be it further resolved that the Mayor of Minneapolis is hereby authorized to act for the City of Minneapolis to finalize this agreement. And be it further resolved that our local Bosaso Sister City organization, Minnesota Friends of Bosaso, in cooperation with the Mayor and City Council of Minneapolis, pursue the necessary steps to formalize the relationship between the two cities and involve appropriate individuals, groups, and businesses in developing economic, educational, and cultural exchanges. And I want to acknowledge that we have many people from the community that have joined us today. Many more joined us for the committee meeting just a few days ago, and many, many more in Bosaso and in Minneapolis are excited and celebrating this moment, a historic moment for Minneapolis and the city of Bosaso, Somalia. And I think others may have comments as well, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Glidden. Anyone else care to comment on the resolution? Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam President and Vice Chair Glidden for all your support, and thanks to the IGR Committee for their unanimous vote to approve this measure, and thanks to the Minnesota Friends of Bosaso for their hard work, and also I would like to thank the community for their support for this initiative and for taking their valuable time to be with us both last Thursday and this morning. And that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Anyone else care to speak? Anyone else care to speak? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to express how fortunate I feel to be able to serve on the council when we're doing this. When I ran for council, and when we think about city government, we really don't think about international relationships. But in large part, thanks to the federal government and President Dwight Eisenhower, whose birthday was just this week, incidentally, set up this sister city, sibling city program with the whole idea that really the way that we're going to accomplish world peace and we're going to solve the larger problems is by building these connections, one city, one neighborhood, one individual at a time. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to reach out in a new way to Somalia. I have to say I wasn't very involved in the work here, so I'm also very grateful for those people who brought this forward. We can't do these sister city relationships with just our city staff. It actually takes people who take the initiative on their own, and all we really are is a support, and we can formalize it, and then we can engage in a relationship with officials and others from that city. So I really appreciate that people came forward with this idea and did all the work to bring it here. And let's take advantage of this now, and let's help fulfill that vision that President Eisenhower had of building these relationships, collaboration, and cooperation and peace to get us there to the dawn of that eternal world peace that we're all after.
Councilmember Cano.
Thank you, Ms. President. I just wanted to thank everyone here for being here and for putting your energy behind this effort. It's a really special time for Minnesota, for Minneapolis, for people across the country. And I do hope that these efforts can help to solidify the Somali Museum work that I know has been happening in the community for a long time. So looking at ways to exchange, strengthen our cultural exchange, our linguistic exchange, making sure that our young people continue to grow up with their language and be bicultural and bilingual, making sure that also we bring in maybe some curriculum development ideas to work with our young people in a more culturally grounded way and help spread this connection with Minneapolis Public Schools and with the other organizations in our city. So thank you so much for being here, because as I was telling Siad Ali early this morning, without your voice, without your energy at the table, this could not have been possible. Congratulations.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam President. I represent the 10th Ward, including the Whittier neighborhood, and I'm proud to represent a significant part of Minneapolis' Somali population. So I just wanted to add my voice today in thanking Councilmember Warsame and everyone who made this happen. And I also wanted to remind everyone that you can vote downstairs on your way home today.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Cano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsame.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That resolution is adopted. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the Community Development and Regulatory Services Report, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. There are 5 items on our agenda for approval this morning. Items 1 and 2 are rental dwelling license issues. Item 3 are our normal liquor, business, and gambling license applications. Item 4 is an interim lease agreement at the Upper Harbor Terminal with GAF. And item number 5 is accepting grants from deed. With that, I'll move items 1 through 5 for approval this morning.
Councilmember Goodman has moved the Community Development and Regulatory Services Report. Anyone want to pull anything off or any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have Health, Environment, and Community Engagement, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. The Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is bringing forward 6 items for approval today. The first is our energy utility franchise agreements and also our execution of our memorandum of understanding with Xcel Energy and Centerpoint Energy. The second item is to confirm the mayoral appointment of Jesus Perez to the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. The third item is passage of a resolution recognizing Friday, October 24th as Food Day in the city of Minneapolis. Fourth item is approving expenditure of up to $13,000 of Hennepin County's second 7.5% NRP funds to address homelessness in downtown. The fifth item is approving amending the NRP Policy Board action to reduce the University Neighborhood NRP allocation by $75,000 and to increase the Sumner Glenwood NRP allocation by that same amount. And the final item is to authorize execution of a grant agreement to accept $3.4 million from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for lead hazard control and healthy home activities. And I will move all of those items, and I would like to speak briefly about items 1 and 3.
Okay, Councilmember Gordon has moved the Health, Environment, Community Engagement Report. Wants to speak on items 1 and 3. Anyone else care to speak on any of those items? Councilmember Glidden, you
Item 1.
On item 1. Okay, let's deal with item 1. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to pause a moment here. I think that we've talked a lot about this at committee and had discussions, and we've been talking in the press, and this is something we've been working on now for a long time through our energy pathway study and other work. The franchise agreements are coming due at the end of this year, and a couple years ago that prompted us to take a really careful look at the way we're working with our utility companies and to take a serious look at are there alternatives to what we have now. And one of the alternatives that we put on the table was municipalization, essentially because it was the only alternative to going with the status quo, and it appeared to be the only alternative at the time. Thanks in large part to the Council Vice President Glidden for proposing taking a study and looking at this, and for the whole council being willing to spend money on a study. We looked at alternatives, and we looked at a pathway that maybe was short of municipalization but wasn't quite the same as the status quo, and I think that's where we've landed right now, and we have an enormous opportunity to do something, I think, about what is probably the most serious problem facing the world now, which is climate change, and dealing with that. I think we find ourselves in a transition right now as a world between the industrial way of dealing with things and that whole industrial revolution that got us to where we are now. And there's many great things we have in the world, but we're realizing that some of what we've done might actually be destroying the world and making it more difficult. So I'm very hopeful about this. I didn't really get all that I wanted out of the franchise agreement. I was hoping for a shorter term. There's even an issue about our notice if we want to terminate the term being 9 votes instead of 7, and there's some details there that I'd like to work on. But I also have to admit that The result has exceeded my expectations. I think we resolved this sooner than I expected, and I've been really impressed with the fact that the utility companies were willing to come to the table and were also interested and excited about this clean energy partnership. So now I want to make sure that we get to work, that we keep our energy vision that we also passed in the last couple of years and our climate action plan on the table. We look at that, and now we work together to see how we can implement that. And I think we might actually discover that there's a whole new way of doing things that isn't this either or of the utility monopoly or municipalization, and we might actually find that there's a way of cooperating that could cut a pathway through, a shortcut to the new energy future that the world really needs. And wouldn't it be great if one little city in the middle of North America could actually help find that path to solve the problem for the rest of the world and get us to where we want to be in terms of fossil fuel emissions. And maybe we could even get to being a net zero city where we've got all the clean energy that we need, we're producing here in a decentralized way. And that's actually, I think, going to be the path, not only to saving the planet, but probably saving the economy and making sure that the world can keep functioning.
Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Madam President. And I'm just so pleased that we are at this moment here today, and I just had to be able to express this. I'm excited that we're here in a partnership state. I think if you look back a year and a half ago, that seemed kind of challenging to get here to this point, and I really have to applaud our partners at the utilities, our staff at the city, and just a broad range of community members that help push and pull us to get to this point. And it didn't always, frankly, feel great, but I think it got us to a much better place. If you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And I think what we have in agreement here together with our utility partners is that we don't want to just do the same thing, but we need to have a framework for how do we do new things together. It's a changing world. It's a world where I think we acknowledge we need bold action on climate change. It's a world where we see the field of energy and energy needs changing, and it's hard to envision what all is possible in the future other than we know this is a big, bold, and changing world. I didn't get a chance at the committee meeting to thank SEAC, our Community Environmental Action Committee. I always forget exactly what it stands for, but SEAC. They actually were incredibly engaged on this issue. They formed a utility franchise subcommittee. They tried to, I think, really give forward-thinking advice, and they worked in partnership, I think, bridging issues that were brought up by our staff, that were brought up by professionals in the energy field, and also community members that were really pushing the envelope in a way that I think brought us to this point. I think this is an exciting new foundation for our work together. We achieved some major goals, which were having a shorter agreement so that we could take advantage of new opportunities that might present themselves in the future. And we now have this clean energy partnership, which I believe is a smart, forward-thinking way to work together. And it's incumbent on us to make the most of this, and I intend to give it my all. So thank you very much, everybody, for your involvement in getting us here today.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to give special recognition and thank Council Vice President Glidden and Councilmember Gordon for their leadership on this, as well as the City Coordinator's Office. We've had also leadership shown throughout the community by Community Power, by Minneapolis Energy Options, by SEAC. We've had broad support from other environmental groups. We've had support from energy activists. The energy companies have stepped up to the table. Just all around, a lot of people coming together to strike a better deal for Minneapolis. And I think it's really exciting. I also think we need to focus on, and I know we are focused on, the fact that there's a lot of work ahead and that we have to prove this partnership out now. And that's really what lays in front of us. So this really is just a beginning, but an exciting beginning and a hopeful one. And there's a lot more to stay tuned to, and we really are hopeful that there will be some great results out of it, that other cities will want to pick up and follow this model as well, and what we're doing to pioneer that model here. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I just want to say that this has been an eventful year in, I think, putting into the front of us as a city the changing environment, as Councilmember Glidden said about energy. It certainly has raised the awareness of many, many people across the city. As I think about, when there was a lot of talk and action, the phone calls that I have, a lot of my constituents said, I like to walk in my house and turn on the lights and pay my bill, and that's what I think about. So I think that people realize now how important this relationship is between us and the companies that provide this great service for us. People expect the companies to provide a good service, repair it when it's necessary. We've all had experiences with that. And now we'll have a way to look forward that takes advantage of this changing nature of energy delivery in our whole nation and in our world. So I, again, appreciate also the partnership, great staff work that was done on this. Our consultant, Center for Energy and the Environment, was fantastic. Our Citizen Advisory Committee and our partnership with the utilities, and it's going to be different, but it's I think something that will benefit our residents dramatically, and put us as a city too at the forefront of this changing environment in the energy arena. So I'm really pleased about this, and I think it was a great effort. It was a lot of work on a lot of people's parts, so thank you, everyone. So we'll move on then to item 3. Councilmember Gordon, you wanted to remark on that?
Yes, and just briefly, I'll note about this item also that at 1 o'clock today, there's going to be a signing and a press conference, and there'll be an opportunity for us to speak again. I believe that's happening downstairs in the rotunda, and everybody's welcome to attend that as well. Now, on item number 3, this is the honoring the Food Day, and I'm now just want to be clear, I think I'm acting on behalf of the Food Council. And I just wanted to note that this year for Food Day, which is the 24th, we are going to be trying to, it's a national day, but we're also going to give it a local twist. And for all of you, I want to pass out now a Minnesota-grown apple. And we're going to be participating in something called the Minneapolis Crunch. And so we're encouraging everybody to, on Food Day, to make sure that they crunch an apple, eat an apple, Minnesota-grown apple if you can. Even Minneapolis would be great. There's actually a Friends of Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council Facebook page where we're going to invite people to post their picture. And maybe if you want to participate and somebody has a camera, we could all take an apple crunch after the council meeting today and put that up. I'm not going to ask you to do it now. And I've heard there's some prohibition against food in the chambers, but I'm not sure. But anyway, with that then, I'm happy to move the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement report in all items.
Councilmember Gordon has moved the Health, Community, Environment, and Community Engagement report, the 3 items that are before you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Aye.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich. Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Thank you. Next, we have the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management report, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam President. We have, I want to say 4 items. We have 4 items today. The first item is to authorize a mutual aid agreement with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, making police agency equipment, personnel, and other resources available between the Minneapolis PD and cities within Hennepin County, and also the Sheriff's Department. Item number 2 is to authorize transfer of title of 4 20-foot trailers to the counties of Iceni, Sherburne, Chisago, and Carver. Item number 3 is to authorize acceptance of a grant award from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for $372,388 and to execute the 2015 Towards Zero Death grant agreement for traffic safety enforcement. And that's to authorize an agreement also with the police departments of the University of Minnesota, Golden Valley, Crystal, Hopkins, Robbinsdale, and New Hope to share the grant funds in the amounts to be determined. And the 4th item is to authorize acceptance of grant award from the U.S. Department of Justice for $100,000 for a planning grant researching crime and factors in specific hotspots that may lead to crime, and to develop a cross-sector strategies to improve public safety, which requires a local match from us of $39,659. And I will move all 4 items.
Councilmember Yang has moved the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Report. Anyone want to pull anything off or speak on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsame.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Transportation and Public Works Report, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee will be forwarding 8 items for approval. I wish to amend item 1 that's been passed out, and it's regarding the water sewer service line repairs, and it's to amend the report, deleting Part B, and inserting in lieu thereof the following, which affects the addresses that are listed. And so there's that. And then, of course, that's part of the body of a passage of resolution adopting and levying assessments for water and sewer service line repairs that remain unpaid, adopting the assessment rolls and directing transmittal of the assessment rolls to the Hennepin County Auditor. And then we have amended the 3 properties that were discussed in committee. Item 2 is the Special Service District's proposed service special charges for 2015. Passage resolution approving those special services, budget cost estimates, and list of services charges for the Uptown, Dickeytown, Central Avenue, Stadium Village, Nicollet Avenue South, Hennepin Avenue, 48th Street East, and Chicago Avenue South, 43rd Street West, and Upton Avenue South Special Service Districts. Item 3 is the traffic signal maintenance agreement with the University of Minnesota to perform maintenance and operation on traffic signals at Harvard Street Southeast and Beacon Street Southeast. Item 4, stormwater pond dredging, authorize amendment of the contract to Cernum Construction Incorporated to allow for work not included in the original scope of the project. The following items we refer to the Ways and Means Committee. Special Service District Snow and Ice Removal Contract, authorize extension of the contract with Custom Products and Services for sidewalk snow clearing and ice control for the 2014-15 winter season in 6 special service districts. Item 6 is the Central Corridor Green Line LRT project. Authorize execution of a subordinate funding agreement, Agreement 25 with the Metropolitan Council, allowing reimbursement to the city for traffic signal work at Cedar Avenue and Riverside Avenue in conjunction with the Central Corridor LRT project, and authorize execution of an endorsement with the federal fiscal year 2014 FTA certification and assurances with the Metropolitan Council for that project. Item 7 is passage resolution increasing the appropriation of the Public Works Engineering Materials and Testing Fund by $180,000 for the purchase of drilling machine, truck, and mounting drill machine equipment. The following items are: accept a single bid Central Mine Equipment Company to deliver boring and surface exploration drilling machine, and accept a single bid of Vite Disposal Systems for the disposal of construction debris and miscellaneous waste through December 2015. And as is per usual, if we have single bids, we do cost comparisons of previous years to make sure they're in line. And that was the case. Also in the committee, though it's not an action to be taken today, we had a significant report that we received and filed entitled Transit Equity, Reducing Disparities Through and Around Improved Transit Service, Transit-Oriented Development, Housing and Job Growth in Minneapolis. And of course, that's an embodiment of a lot of work that had been done in relation to the Southwest LRT project. A lot of work from community advocates, and certainly a lot of work by staff to pull it all together from various departments. And it should be noted the considerable work and leadership that was shown by Council Vice President Glidden throughout all of that process. And of course, Councilmember Goodman, whose communities have been impacted, and they've been discussing this for some time. And so all of that was, I would say, directly put into this document. and it was very comprehensively presented in all the aspects that were raised by the community. In no way was this a gloss over of community concerns by a document. This was a lot of work and a lot of back and forth, and a pretty impressive statement on behalf of the city to its communities that are impacted by transit. So with that, Madam President, I move the full body of the 8 items as amended with number 1.
Councilmember Reich has moved the Transportation Public Works Report in its entirety with number 1 as amended. Any discussion on any of those items? Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to make a quick comment with regards to the amendment. I think sometimes what happens is that we do things and then people come here and they're unhappy about it. And I really appreciate our staff taking the time to listen to everyone who had a complaint and really looking at the situation, assessing, what the law could be or what the law is, and doing everything in their powers to try to figure out what the right answer is. And I think with the amendment, I think they did their best to try to find the right answer, and so I really appreciate that.
Any further discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Aye.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsame.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Ways and Means Report, and that committee is chaired by Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam President. Ways and Means will bring forward 12 items for your approval today. The first is a legal settlement. The second item is an amendment to the master agreement for legal services with Lockridge Grindle Nowen. The third item is amending the agreement with Office Team for temporary services contract. Fourth and fifth items are the acceptance of broadcast airtime for public service announcements with Comcast Cable, and digital billboard display time with Clear Channel Outdoor. Then the next item is the Minneapolis Convention Center structure cabling improvement bid, accepting a low bid from Allstate Communications, Inc. The seventh item is the contract with JPMI Construction Company for fire stations 5 and 7 contract amendments. The eighth item is the resolution accepting gifts for our third quarter gift acceptance resolution. The ninth item is the execution of a termination and release agreement for our interest in the IDSS software system. The 10th item is the extending a contract with Geographic Information Services for the boundary editing tool. The 11th item is the execution of a contract with Microsoft for 1 year for their software migration. And the final item is approval of the recommendation for a market exemption for salary for the internal auditor position. Happy to move all 12 items for approval.
Councilmember Quincy has moved the Ways and Means Report in its entirety. Anyone want to pull anything off or discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Aye.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich. Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsame.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. Next, we have the Zoning and Planning Committee report with that committee's chair, Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam President. We have 8 items to forward from the Zoning and Planning Committee. Item number 1 is a street easement vacation. Item number 2 is an amendment to our secondhand goods zoning code text to allow furniture sales from secondhand goods in the C3A zoning district. Item number 3 is to amend off-street parking regulations in the University Area Overlay District. Items number 4, 5, and 6 are small area plan adoptions for the Nicollet Island East Bank, St. Anthony East, and Sheridan neighborhood organizations. And item number 7 is to direct staff to provide comments on the Metropolitan Council's draft 2040 Parks Policy Plan. Item number 8 is adoption of a conservation district amendment. I will forward all items, and I would like to briefly comment on item 8.
Councilmember Bender has moved the Zoning and Planning Committee report And I'm sorry, item 8, did you say, Councilmember Bender?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to describe a bit of background here on the Conservation District Ordinance, which has been under discussion for a couple of years. Conservation districts are a new historic preservation tool in the city of Minneapolis, and they provide an opportunity for property owners to create, along with the city, design guidelines to preserve notable architecture in the city. There are some key differences between conservation districts and historic districts. Conservation districts do not provide protection for individual buildings the way that historic districts do, or the specific elements, the materials on the existing buildings. What they do is provide design guidelines for new buildings that go within the district. Unlike historic districts, there are no interim protections. So throughout the process of discussing or developing a conservation district, property owners are not under any sort of restriction. The committee had a robust discussion of this amendment and approved some new amendments to the ordinance. We clarified the definition of notable and notability and some of the other definitions within the ordinance. We ensured that conservation district guidelines are consistent with the comprehensive plan and our adopted zoning code. We required review by the Planning Commission to make sure that that body is looking at the consistency with our long-range plans. And then we changed it so that the design guidelines are adopted by the City Council. And that's one way to address the concerns that there'll be a bigger discussion about the design guidelines beyond just the property owners. We also increased the portion of properties that have to meet the establishment criteria to 75% of the area of the properties within the district. And then because of some concerns over how much staff time this might take, we've created what's basically a pilot program in 2015 so that no more than 2 conservation districts will be studied in the first year. And then we'll be able to revisit this and see how it's going, including particularly how much staff time we are spending. So with that, I don't know if anyone else has any other comments. I think Councilmember Gordon, the author, may want to speak as well.
Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I just wanted to comment a little bit on this project. It has certainly been a long endeavor for me working on this, and lots of people were involved. I wanted to offer special thanks to John Smoley from the CPED department and also the staff team that we put together there. This was actually an idea that was called out in our comp plan, and then something that grew out of an effort to designate a historic area in the Prospect Park neighborhood. They then worked with the University of Minnesota to do a study on this topic, and I decided that I would take it on to see what we could come up with. It turns out there's lots of different ways of doing this in other cities throughout the country, and it took us a while to get to this path and to this place. There was a technical advisory team that really provided lots of insight and lots of thought. But also I have to thank my colleagues here on the council for also getting engaged and involved in this and willing to sit down and talk about it. I also want to acknowledge that the Minneapolis Realtors Association got very involved. So did the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Commission. So actually all along the way, this has been a dynamic ordinance that's been changing, and it's been moving and kind of sometimes addressing very different concerns. There was a big concern that this is going to make a lot of people not want to actually preserve the historic treasures. Instead, we're just going to think, oh, we'll make it part of a conservation district and we'll be fine, and that will drive people towards that. I think right now we put some safeguards to prevent that from happening. There was also concern that this is going to be a blunt instrument that's just going to stop all kinds of growth and allow this kind of not in my backyard mentality to run rampant in the city, and I think we put a lot of safeguards in the ordinance to make sure that won't happen. We also, as Councilmember Bender mentioned, put in a safeguard of just starting with 2 for the first year, and we can see how it goes. I think that will be helpful and give us a chance to evaluate what's happened. My intention all along the way, and this is really exemplified if you think about Prospect Park or if you know it, is to create something that will actually help in the long run, support and foster more harmonious and efficient growth and development so that we'll have a chance a long time before anything comes along. And that's what the conservation districts, I think, is about. It's a very future forward-thinking thing. It's not something that's going to work if there's imminent danger to an area. But if you're looking ahead and you're saying, well, here's some characteristics, and here's some things we really treasure. It's really charming, really unique. Let's try to preserve this. And then that's going to help us all understand, well, what we want to, where the growth should go is somewhere else. We're certainly doing that in Prospect Park now. We'll see if this takes on interest in the public, and if people come forward. Of course, with these ordinances, I always have the fear we'll go through all this work and we'll create something, some new tool, and we'll end up never using it. But we'll see. There's also the fear that we would create this tool and we'll have just tons of people coming to use it. So even after the first year, we're also limiting it to only one per planning district per year after that, so that it will be manageable by staff. If we find out it's something people really, really want to do, then in next year's budget, maybe we can reevaluate getting some more resources. But I appreciate everybody's engagement on the council here and all the ideas and suggestions for amendments that came, and especially Councilmember Reich for leading this through the Zoning and Planning Committee.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam President. If I may also comment on items 4, 5, and 6 in addition to item number 8.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. First, on items 4, 5, and 6, there are 3 small area plans that are all in the 3rd Ward. It's the Nicollet Island East Bank Small Area Plan, the St. Anthony East Small Area Plan, as well as the Sheridan Small Area Plan. I wanted to thank the community as well as staff for devoting quite a bit of effort. These are very forward-thinking plans on the whole. You know, and speaking about the Nicollet Island East Bank neighborhood plan in particular, this is I think the first neighborhood in the entire city that has called for buildings to be taller. I think that's really an impressive revelation at this point. In fact, we rejected a project because the building was too short and did not have enough residential. So in terms of adding density, the east side is certainly doing their parts. You know, St. Anthony East, if you check it out, it's a brilliant plan. The Sheridan neighborhood is in the Arts District. They did an extraordinary job. So thank you to both the community members as well as staff for devoting quite a bit of time. And with regard to the Conservation District, I first want to thank Councilmember Gordon for all the work that he put into this. It's been a couple years, most of which was before I got on the council. I do have concerns about this. You know, my concerns are that, you know, if the ordinance has teeth, then what we are doing is, in some senses, promoting NIMBYism, or at least that's my concern. People saying that we don't want a building to be of a certain height or a certain look. You know, I have a concern that if we're talking about design guidelines, then perhaps somebody's going to say, well, I don't like the look of dive bars. I happen to think dive bars have quite a bit of character a lot of times. Whereas if they don't have teeth, then we're giving people the impression that the ordinance can do something when in many cases it can't. So those are my concerns, but the fact that we now have narrowed the effect of the ordinance to pilot programs for a couple specific neighborhoods for now, I'm okay with it now. I'm happy, and I look forward to seeing how it goes. But I do want to express that I have some concerns going forward. And thank you for all your work. I don't want to undermine any of it.
Any further discussion on the zoning and planning report? Seeing none, I want to comment on item 7, which is staff remarks, comments directed to the Metropolitan Council for the Parks Policy Plan. This is for a city that is recognized for our park system, this is a really, really important document. The history over the years of the regional park system, which in Minneapolis includes what you would think of our premier parks, our chain of lakes, the Central Riverfront, the Gorge, the Grand Rounds itself, Minnehaha Park. This policy plan directs funding, directs changes to those significant parks, and Theodore Wirth Park, I forgot, oh my gosh, Theodore Wirth, directs how changes will be made to uses within those parks, and then also prioritizing funding for the parks. And, you know, in this system, we are, between us and Three Rivers Park District, Minneapolis and Three Rivers Park District, we have almost 2/3 of the users in the regional park system across this metropolitan area. And our parks get much, much heavier use than some of the parks in the more rural communities. And so staff, I think, was really thoughtful, and I want to thank them for being very deliberate about our concerns and our challenges with regard to this regional park system. And, you know, I think one of the things that changes over time is allowed uses in the parks. And, you know, we have, our residents are typically a shorter term user, and so they're more interested in picnic facilities, that sort of thing that they can use on a daily basis. And so staff was really careful in putting these comments together, and I think it'll be a good addition to the Metropolitan Council's report for the policy plan for parks, because it's such an important part of our city. So clerk will call the roll on the zoning and planning report.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Wright. Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Fry.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That report is adopted. And next we have resolutions, and the one that we have is an honorary resolution by Councilmember Quincy and a number of us endorsing Kids Voting Minneapolis. Councilmember Quincy?
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to highlight and extend my appreciation to my colleagues for supporting Kids Voting Minneapolis. This is an organization that's nonprofit, nonpartisan, and a terrific way to engage our young residents in the civics education process and in the election process. The resolution that's on your desks certainly outlines some of those important details and statistics about their impact. But since they've been around for since 2004, and this is in their 10th year, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge their importance to our election process and our continued support of the project. So thank you for that comment.
On the honorary resolution, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Under unfinished business, we have an ordinance introduction pursuant to notice by a motion by Councilmember Glidden to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to administration for first reading and referral to committee of the whole, amending provisions related to boards, commissions, committees, task forces, and similar organizations. That on that ordinance introduction, any discussion? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Pursuant to notice, Councilmember Andrew Johnson is moving to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to licenses and business regulations for first reading and referral to the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee, allowing temporary extended hours of operation licenses. Any discussion on that ordinance introduction? Seeing none, all in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Under new business, we have notice of intent. Councilmember Bender gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to the zoning code, amending regulations governing the placement of containers for household refuse. Any discussion on that? Oh, I'm sorry, it's notice of intent. That notice is given. Number two, we have Councilmember Wright giving a notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to streets and sidewalks, right-of-way permits, setting out specific permit requirements for dumpsters and storage containers obstructing the public right-of-way. That notice is given. Councilmember Reich also gives notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to the building code, permit fees, clarifying in connection with amendments to the right-of-way chapter that street use permits referred to in the building code are a form of obstruction permit. That notice is given. Councilmember Goodman gives notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to licenses and business regulations, amending process for administrative hearings for business licenses. That notice is given. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to general provisions in general, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision. That notice is given. We've got a number of these. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to administration, updating language to reflect changes indicated by plain language charter revision in a number of departments. That notice is given. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to fire and police protection, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision. That notice is given, and it's relating to police and fire. We also give notice, Councilmember Glidden and myself, of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to health and sanitation, health department, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision. That notice is given. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to license and business regulations, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision. That notice is given. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to streets and sidewalks, updating language to reflect changes indicated by plain language charter revision in relating in general and right-of-way permits. That notice is given. Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to water, sewer, sewage disposal, water, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision. And Councilmember Glidden and myself give notice of intent to introduce at the next meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending the code relating to the zoning code administration and enforcement, updating language to reflect changes indicated by the plain language charter revision, and that notice is given. Next, we have announcements. Anyone have any announcements? Well, I would invite people to come up and take a look at 44th and Penn Avenue North. Little business district in North Minneapolis had a major road improvement done, and it was a challenge for the businesses that were affected by this kind of key intersection. It's where traffic from Brooklyn Center comes into North Minneapolis, and we've had major road work being done on County Road 9 in Robbinsdale, and then also the bridge over Brooklyn Boulevard into Brooklyn Center has been closed, and so we've been isolated. It reminded me of when we had the Lowry Bridge and the Camden Bridge closed at the same time. But the businesses survived, and they're having a celebration Saturday from 11 until 4. Sidewalk art. We have a couple really nice restaurants up there. A local artist consignment shop, Goddess of Glass, and everybody's participating. Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation has their North Home Improvement Center there, and so it should be a good time. So I invite everybody to come. Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam President. Two quick announcements. The first, and I doubt more than 10 people are going to be watching Channel 79 until early morning to tomorrow, but the big gay race is tomorrow, which is it's the 4th annual. It'll be a really exciting day. We should have about 1,000 people out there, so it'll be really exciting. And the second is we do have an election that is coming up in the very near future, and so one, make sure that you're ready to vote. No excuse absentee if you're unable to on election day. And two, we are in need of election judges. So if you are willing, make sure you contact the city's office. You can contact my office or the clerk.
Any other announcements? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn to be in order.
So moved.
Second.
All in approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.